Heartland Highways is made possible in part by Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System, dedicated to providing care for all and creating healthy communities in East Central Illinois, offering general and specialty medicine, including a regional cancer center, heart and lung center, orthopedics and sports medicine, a center for interventional pain, and a full complement of diagnostic and rehabilitative services. Sarah Bush Lincoln, trusted, compassionate care. Coming up on Heartland Highways, we're all about cars.
First, we'll sit down with Dick Levi, who has an impressive collection of both vintage and new cars, and a few motorcycles, too.
Then we're off to the races at the Coles County Speedway, the oldest micro-sprint track in the U.S.
Finally, we'll learn more about a historic highway that once connected Chicago to Miami, and meet up with one group who likes to travel the road here in Illinois.
Those stories just ahead on Heartland Highways.
Thanks for joining us this week on Heartland Highways. Today we're at 7th Street Underground, which is part of the Student Union here at EIU.
Now, the man you're about to meet in this first story was a student here at Eastern back in the 60s. Dick Levi graduated with a degree in business and then went on to be a computer programmer. Today he's a successful businessman who tells me his hobby is work, but he also has another hobby, collecting cars and motorcycles.
No, my background's not in cars, but I've always liked cars. When I was younger, I didn't have the money to afford them, but I liked them, and so as I got older and was able to afford cars, I started collecting them. Well, the first car I acquired when I was 16 was a 1955 Chevrolet that I paid $300 for, which was probably too much because it burned oil like crazy, but of course, I had to find another 55 later, and so I've got one now that's much nicer than the one I owned, but my first car was a 1955 Chevrolet.
It was this 1987 Ferrari that Dick says started his collection about 15 years ago. He built an airplane hangar to first house the planes for his business, and then added a wing and then another for collecting and storing his cars and motorcycles.
Well, you know, if I had to pick one flavor or brand of car, it would probably be Chevrolet. Now, I like all cars, but I am probably more of a Chevrolet person than anything else. My favorite car would have to be, and this is hard too because I've got several, but I've got a 1963 Chevrolet Biscayne, which has got a 409 engine and a 4-speed and all that, and it's an awesome car. But I've got a lot of neat cars, but I would have to, if I had to pick one, that would probably be it.
Some of the cars in the collection have interesting backstories, like this 1978 Corvette pace car that's never been driven and still has the factory wrapping on it. Or this 1926 Chevrolet with a connection to Babe Ruth.
That was sitting on the street in St. Louis, Missouri in 1926 when it was new in front of the dealership. And Babe Ruth hit his record-breaking third home run in a World Series. The ball went across the street, knocked the window out of the dealership, not out of the car. But he came across the street, and I've got pictures of Babe Ruth standing by and on the running board of that car. So that's got a really good story.
When it comes to restored cars, Dick says he prefers restored to original rather than modified. And to keep these beauties in showroom condition and in running order, Dick's recent addition helps with that task.
Of course, it's a workshop with a car lift and all my tools. And then beyond that is what I call a quarter wash. It's what people are used to. They slip the quarters in and they can wash and wax and all that. And then I've got a big leaf blower. I use that as my blow dryer, and a chamois, and I just use it to work on cars and detail them and things like that. Yeah, I guess it's my man cave, and I go through spells. I might not come out here for a month, and then I might come out here several nights in a row. It just depends on my mood and, you know, what I feel like doing. I probably come out here a little more in the winter, but in the nice weather, I like to be outside and ride my motorcycle instead of working on something, but it varies.
Dick's collection is not limited only to vintage cars. He also likes high-performance modern vehicles like the Dodge Viper, the Corvette ZR1, and the Ford GT. And speaking of Fords, he also owns an F650 pickup truck.
It's almost like a semi with a pickup body. It's a Caterpillar diesel and Allison 6-speed transmission and air brakes and all that stuff. And it's just kind of a fun truck.
While he does drive the F650 and some of the other cars in his collection, several of them are show car trailer queens. However, Dick's motorcycle collection is another story.
Well, the first motorcycle would be a 1992 Harley Davidson, because that was the first Harley Davidson that I ever owned. I had motorcycles before that, but that was my first Harley Davidson, and I've never sold one. I've bought a new one every single year, and a couple of years I've bought two, and so I've got obviously a lot of them. So the first one in the collection I have now is a 1992. Now I've got some older Hondas, like I rode in college. I have a 1966 Honda 160 that was what I rode every day in college, and I bought one and restored it. I've got a 67 Honda, and then I've got a few non-Harley Davidson motorcycles.
One of those non-Harleys is a behemoth called the Boss Hoss.
I'm not sure why I bought that. It was one of those things I thought was really neat, and I can remember when I bought it. It was from a dealer in Bloomington, and I said to the fella when it came in, when it was ready for me, I said, I'll tell you what, if you'll ride it from Bloomington to Springfield, I'll take one of my planes and I'll have them fly you back home, because I honestly didn't want to first time ride it. I mean, I've ridden motorcycles since I was 19, but that thing's a beast. And so he rode it here for me, and then I flew him home, and then fast forward a few days, it was Saturday, and I'm out here by myself, and I keep looking at it, and I'm thinking, boy, I don't know if I can do this or not. You know, that thing is scary. Well, finally, I thought, well, I bought it, I've got to do it, and so I did do it, and I put about 500 or 600 miles on it the first summer, and then the next couple summers I rode it maybe once or twice. I mean, it's really neat and it's fun, but it's not relaxing because it's, you know, it's just so big and powerful and hot.
There's also a replica of Peter Fonda's bike from the movie Easy Rider.
It's not comfortable to ride, but it sure looks neat. It's a twin to the one that was in the movie.
Dick also owns a custom fabricated motorcycle that honors the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth.
Well, the Abraham Lincoln Museum asked me a couple years ago if I would consider having one built. I would pay for it and I would own it, but they would like to display it at certain events and all that to commemorate his 200th birthday, which was in 2009. And so I had it built. I contacted Kim Shirley from here in Springfield, who owns a auto body place but also makes motorcycles or builds them and all that. And he designed it and built it, so he did all the work. All I did was pay for it and I own it. Probably my number one hobby, as crazy as it sounds, is work. I love my job. Another thing I love to do is ride motorcycles because it's relaxing. But this, of course, is a hobby as well, and I like to come out here and, you know, take a car and detail it or, you know, clean it up, spiff it up, whatever, things like that. So it is one of my hobbies.
From car collecting to car racing, in this next story you'll see that there's more to racing than just speed at one Central Illinois racetrack. Midget car racers, young and old, say that there's no place they'd rather tear it up than at the Coles County Speedway, a racing tradition for more than half a century.
1956, micro midget racing was starting to catch on in the United States. 7 local men, and one of them including my father, each donated $25 to start our local track, and it was licensed by the state of Illinois as a nonprofit organization. in 1956 and has raced continuously since then, making it the oldest micro track in the United States.
For over 6 decades, the Coles County Speedway has been a racing venue for micro midget racing, or what is now called micro sprint racing. Within its first 5 years of existence, the track changed locations several times.
The first track was located just west of Charleston on Old Route 16 at my father's livestock auction facility. I believe they ran there for about a year and a half, and then they decided they needed a more permanent location. So then the track moved approximately 2 miles east of town on the Popham farm, and they raced there for 2 to 3 years until the club had enough money of their own. They bought 10 acres of land located about halfway between Mattoon and Charleston. I believe that was in 1960, and the track was ready to go in 1961.
Once it settled into its current location on Route 316 between Charleston and Mattoon, Illinois, the track started out as a dirt track, but in 1963 changed to asphalt, and remained the racing surface till 1985, when it changed back to racing on dirt.
Asphalt was becoming popular in the 1960s. You could put the asphalt down, it'd last for several years. Didn't have to water it and grade it every week. But then some people got tired of racing on asphalt. They thought the dirt was more exciting. So a lot of the tracks were needing repaved by the 1980s. A lot of the tracks couldn't afford to repave their tracks, so that's when a decision was made on most of them to take the asphalt up and to go back to the dirt. Here's a photo of my father's first car, built in 1956. Harvey Brown, who helped build the car with my father, is seated in the car in this photo. The car is right now at Knoxville, Iowa, in the Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum, and being the first micro midget ever in the museum.
Jeff Horn of Charleston is currently the vice president of the Coles County Speedway. Horn followed his father's footsteps and was a micro sprint racer from 1976 to 2000. Horn enjoyed much success in his first few years of racing.
I was the 1976 Illinois State Champion, and we won several races over in Logansport, Indiana, and I was fortunate enough to get to go to Carlsbad, New Mexico for the internationals, they were called at that time. Didn't win anything out there, but got to run in what was the biggest race of the 1970s.
In addition to Horn's success, a few other racers who started racing at the Coles County Speedway went on to enjoy successes of their own.
Larry Rice from Indiana raced here in 1967, and in the early 70s he made it to the Indy 500 and was the 500 Rookie of the Year. And then our latest driver that has done really well is Levi Jones from Albany, Illinois. He raced with us in the mid-90s, and he has went on to become a 3-time USAC sprint car champion, and he currently races for Tony Stewart.
The track hosts races from the first Saturday in May through the last Saturday in September. On average, 50 or more racing teams come out on a given Saturday to the Coles County Speedway, and they participate in heat races, which are 10 laps long, trophy dash races that are 6 laps long, and the feature races that have between 20 to 30 laps, depending on the racing classification. Upwards of 40 track workers or volunteers help out to make the whole racing day go smoothly.
We've got 6 on the infield. We have 3 EMTs. We've got 6 in the tower for scoring and lineups. We've got people at scales. We have people that are lining the cars actually up. We've got people at the pit board. We've just got people everywhere. When you put 20 cars out there, that's a lot of cars in a small little area. And we just got transponders for the first time this year. That was a huge upgrade for us. And now we can see the speed that they're going. And they're going about 45 miles an hour out there, so that's a lot when you look at how small that little area is.
It started out as a 1/8 mile, and we did stretch it out a few years ago. I believe it's about 1,200 feet around the track on the pole.
track has held the Micro Sprint National Championships 4 times, in 1961, 1967, 1988, and most recently in 2006.
1988, we had the Nationals here. We had 228 cars. We had drivers from California, Pennsylvania, Texas, probably I think about 28 states is where they were from for that race.
Racers from ages 6 to 60 can be found at the track. Paul Day from Atwood, Illinois has been racing since 1991 and has raced at the Coles County Speedway countless times.
A lot of us can go anywhere and run and be in the top. Really, to be a good competitive racer, this is the track to come and do it. You can go anywhere and pretty much be in the top 5. It's just a good all-around competitive place, good concession stand, just a good atmosphere. It's a fun place to be.
And he is not the only one in this household that races. His 2 kids, Molly and Tyler, also put the pedal to the metal.
Every time it's enjoyable, and I go home on a Sunday and I kick back, and even tonight I'll go out there and I'll watch, and I usually get a big smile on my face when they're out there, as I know they're having just such a good time and a blast.
For Jeff Horn, he has seen the track from the beginning, with his dad, a former micro sprint racer and founding member of the Coles County Speedway. Horn, in his 35th year affiliated with the track, has passed the family racing gene to his son Cordy, who has been racing since 2005. For Mary Ellen Harris, who has been with the track for 20 years, every Saturday at the Coles County Speedway is a chance to be with those she cares about the most.
I've met a lot of friends, and they're like family to me. A good thing that I always felt about it was something that my son and I could do together, and I knew where he was on Saturdays. And years ago in the past, it was something that we traveled with and would go and be a family with it. It's a very warm feeling to come out here with the people that I love.
I've been to numerous micro tracks in the United States, and when somebody, it seems like, finds out you're from Coles County, Charleston, Illinois, Mattoon area, that you'll hear them say, oh, my dad raced there in the 60s, or I was there in the 70s, you know, or my uncle raced there. It seems like everybody you run into has heard of Coles County Speedway or has been there at some time.
The best thing are the fans. The fans love when they can see a guy go up around the top side and just blow people off the bottom. And this track, when the top's in, it's fun for the fans and fun for the driver.
It's just fun. There's not a whole lot of words to describe it other than fun, laid back, and you know, you feel like you can just be yourself here.
This final story is a little history lesson about the Dixie Highway. Completed in 1921, it was a series of improved roads that connected Chicago to Miami. And here in Illinois, it was the longest continuous paved road in the state. This summer, we met up with a group of Dixie Highway enthusiasts in Rossville, Illinois. Today's travelers along Illinois Route 1, just outside of Rossville, may have no idea that they're driving on a piece of transportation history. Long before the interstate system and even before Route 66, the Dixie Highway served as the first paved north-south route between Chicago and Miami. It was a series of paved roads that was a product of the Good Roads movement. One of the Dixie Highway's biggest proponents was industrialist Carl Fisher.
Fisher had land holdings near Miami, Florida. He also was involved in a company called the Prestolite Manufacturing Company, which made headlights for autos at that time. So he had an interest in making people drive at night. He wanted to improve roads because the more roads were improved, the more people would buy cars. And he had also had an interest in getting people down to Florida to hopefully buy land or vacation down there to help with his investments down there.
In Illinois, the Dixie Highway comprised 136 miles with a starting point at Adams Street and Michigan Boulevard in Chicago. Leaving Chicago, the road followed Illinois Route 1 to Danville and then went west into Indiana. In October of 1915, a motorcade took off from Chicago in an effort to both promote and inspect the highway.
They left Chicago about 6 o'clock that morning and didn't get to Danville until about 12 o'clock that evening. And up and down the road on their journey, they stopped in each community, and basically the governor told the people why the the paved highways, in particular here the Dixie Highway, was important to the state and their communities.
By 1921, the entire route in Illinois was complete, making it the longest continuous paved road in the state. By 1926, the Dixie Highway was finished nationally, totaling nearly 5,800 miles. Today, Illinois Route 1 continues to be a well-traveled road connecting communities like Watseka, Hoopeston, Rossville, and Danville. And one group who wants to promote the Dixie Highway in Illinois is the A's R Us Model A Ford Club, based in Crete, Illinois.
The A's R Us Club does sponsor the Drive in the Dixie Tour, which starts up in Blue Island and then winds up in Momence. And along the way, it's another thing where each and every one of the little towns kind of open up the town, and you get a chance to find out some of the history of the Dixie Highway. Now, Jim Wright, who's with the group and leading the group today, has actually written the book about driving the Dixie in Illinois. So there's a little bit of history in each and every little town in the book, but then to actually stop in these little towns and see something that's not just a picture, but to see the physical bricks and sticks is really neat and really interesting. And then to find out the little things, the little nuances of the history of the various little towns is really great as well.
On this October day, Kate and I met up with the A's R Us in Rossville. As part of their fall tour, they decided to recreate that historic promotional motorcade from 1915. Their journey would take them from Chicago to Danville, with stops in many of the towns along the route.
The cars in the club are Model A's. They're vehicles that were produced by Ford from 1928 to 1931. They're all owned by members of the club. They're all what they call drivers. So, I mean, they don't sit in people's garages or get trailered anywhere. They get driven. They go on all of our trips. Most of the time we don't have any problems with it. Today we had a few problems with one car in particular, but every other car pretty much has made it down here, and we're going to still hit Danville. I'm kind of the oddball in the bunch. I drive a 1954 Ford, actually fire chief's car, and the Model A guys have been very nice to me and have accepted me as part of their club.
And, it's just really great to go into these towns and find out a little bit of history about each and every little town, to find out about the people. And the cars are kind of a gateway to open up the conversations. You start talking about the cars, and the next thing you know, you're talking about this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, we like traveling old roads. We like traveling named roads. We like traveling roads that have no names, and are backcountry roads and squiggly roads and curvy roads and things like that. We don't want to travel the heavily traveled roads because we can travel at the pace that we normally travel at without having to be harassed by other motorists who get upset that we're going too slow.
While the advent of the interstate system has overshadowed the two-lane highway, routes like the Dixie Highway still have an important role to play.
The Dixie Highway now, obviously is the backbone of these towns in eastern Illinois, east central Illinois. Obviously, for these communities, it's extremely important that the highway continues to be well maintained, which in Vermilion County and Iroquois County is extremely well maintained because they just redid it this year. For these communities, it's important, and not everybody has access to interstate highways, and so it gives these people an opportunity to get places quickly and safely, and it's important. And actually, as far as the name, the Dixie Highway, to keep that in people's mind, it's part of our history, and hopefully the communities that it goes through will capitalize that on as part of their history, and make it something that they can have people stop in their town and increase maybe a level of tourism in their communities.
We're glad you joined us for this week's edition of Heartland Highways.
And don't forget, if you want to know more about the people or the places we feature in the show, check out our website at weiu.net/HH.
We'll see you next time.
Heartland Highways is made possible in part by Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System, dedicated to providing care for all and creating healthy communities in East Central Illinois, offering general and specialty medicine, including a regional cancer center, heart and lung center, orthopedics and sports medicine, a center for interventional pain, and a full complement of diagnostic and rehabilitative services. Sarah Bush Lincoln, trusted, compassionate care.
Okay, are we ready now to go, finally?
Can we get about it?
Can we do the whole
intro
in a Minnesotan accent?